Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. I want to thank Calm Collective for putting this presentation together. We're all about new year, new brand. My name is Angela Belt. I'm an interior designer and stylist of Angela Belt Art and Style, and also the host of the Mood Board podcast. And I'll have this amazing panel. Everybody introduce themselves. We'll start here with Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen Rivoli, and I am an interior designer in Boston, Massachusetts.
All right, next up, Roxana.
Hi, my name is Roxanne Hanna. I'm a founder and creative director of Hanna Creative Co. We're a digital marketing creative agency based in Providence, Rhode Island.
All right, Anderson.
Hi, I'm Anderson Summersell. I'm the founder and CEO of Summersell, a brand new digital showroom here in New York City.
All right, and then Tiana, last but not least.
Hi, my name is Tiana Webb Evans. I am the founder of ESP Group, a brand strategy and communications agency based in the New York metro area.
So this year, I feel like everybody is ready for a real fresh start. A lot of questions have come in, and I thought one of the best ones to kick it off with everybody, and I'll have Kristen go first for this, is, what is branding? And why is it so important?
So I've worked a lot on this in the past couple of years, and branding is really just setting yourself up for your clients so that a potential client who sees your website or your logo can get an instant sense of who you are, what you're projecting, your aesthetic, your brand. Your brand is high-end luxury interior designer. And so the font that you use, the colors that you use, the branding of, who you are should really be about that. And everything that you talk about from that point should be all about that brand.
Right, Roxana, what's your perspective on branding?
Well, branding I think branding is more than just a logo. It's every single customer touch point, your website, your visual identity system, social media, photography, how you interact with clients, online, offline, even down to your handwritten note. Every interaction is important. So definitely it builds trust and awareness. And so I think it's vitally important in terms of growing your company.
Mm-hmm. Tiana, you want to go next? Just your perspective on branding?
I am sort of the counterpart to someone like Roxana. And I have the same perspective. I mean, it is the process of creating that sort of tangibility around that intangible essence that is your business. You are bringing in from the inside, outside, that people can touch and feel at every single touch point, what your company is about. And then it can help create resonance for your clients so that you can actually attract your target audience. And it's a communication system at its highest level.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Anderson, what's your thoughts on branding?
Well, I view branding as a way to be seen outside of all the crowd. There's so many different brands out there. You want to create a messaging, a image, a look that sets you apart from everybody else. I kind of sometimes look at it as if you're at a party. I don't necessarily want to be the loudest and the most flamboyant person at the party.
Yeah.
I would like to be the most rememberable person at the party. So you want your brand, when people see your brand, you want them to want to talk about it, want to share it, and want to say, hey, did you see and did you hear about this company, this image, this whatever?
Right. And I think, honestly, as we enter the new year, everybody's really feeling that. This is the perfect time to really reevaluate your business, figure out how are you going to put yourself out there. And I really wanted to hear about from you guys in your perspective, what does branding look like with your business in the new normal with e-design and virtual marketing? How are you attracting new business? And I'll start it off with you, Kristen.
So in building the brand for my business, I then have upgraded my website to really have a very strong message. Within the very first line, you get on my homepage and you know exactly what it is you're going to find, and what you're going to find with me as an interior designer. I also have a very strong Instagram account and Pinterest page. So if anybody is looking for me on those search engines, they're going to know exactly who I am and what my design aesthetic is, or what my ethos is on how I work as an interior designer. So the branding, the logo supports the website, supports the Instagram, supports the Pinterest. So it's
Right.
all of those kind of communication tools that I use for that kind of, socially distanced communication that we have right now. Right now we're not able to go to events and we're not able to get out there in other ways.
Yeah.
So, using those tools is really important right now in pushing our brand and our message forward.
Yeah, and I think also, I think like what you said too, it's almost like building blocks.
Right.
One thing on top of another that people keep seeing, this is Kristen, this is her style on all those different platforms.
It's a foundation, you just have to keep building on that and keep, as Roxanne had said, it's putting that message out there and having those different touch points and repeating that message and maybe saying it in different ways or expressing it in different ways.
Yeah. So Tiana, I'm going to go to you next really with the same question, but wondering, from a business perspective, when you're reaching out and working with other people, how are you kind of doing that same approach?
Right. So what's really, this one gave me a bit of pause. I think 2020 was really interesting, right? So for many of us who are small business owners, you go from like panic, right, to reaction and then reflection. And 2020 was really a wonderful time to reflect on our businesses, to really get a sense of where the opportunities lie, kind of what we want to do and where we want to do it and who we want to do it with, right? And then you have the challenge of proximity. My business is very kind of, well, until recently, more clandestine in the sense of like, the secret weapon behind the scenes. And a lot of my relationships, I don't really go after business in a traditional sense. A lot of it is about networking and community and being in community with people. So during this time where we have been like, virtually networking, a lot of my kind of focus has been, who am I in conversation with? Who am I in community with? And what kinds of people, companies, would I like to, help move to the next level? Because I think for me, really, a lot of the times it's like talking to the hairdresser with bad hair. My focus is truly, other people's brands and other people's business. And I rarely get to kind of reflect on what I'm doing and how I'm expressing myself. So in terms of being able to push my brand forward, it has been platforms like this, really having conversations in community with the kinds of people I would love to have as clients, or continue to sort of grow my business in that direction. At the same time, one of the big things has been quality over quantity. I'm very, very rigorous about the clients that I take on, and I don't take on a lot of people. So it has been being able to communicate that while still being focused on future business and growth. So in terms of my brand, it's really about refinement at this stage.
Yeah, I think refinement is the message of 2021 too. Don't just take on a ton of stuff. I think 2020 might have been that, and over juggling and dropping. And I think this year definitely is like tailoring it down. Makes total sense. Anderson, I'm going to go to you next, just talking about, what does branding look like for you in your business with e-design, virtual marketing? What are you doing?
Well, our brand caters to interior designers. So for us, for Summersell, we have to be, we have to hone in on how interior designers are working during this particular time, which is the reason we launched digitally first, opposed to opening a brick and mortar showroom. It's really, and going back, someone had mentioned the ethos. It's understanding the ethos of your brand, and the ethos for our brand is, how do we make the designer's life easier? It is what runs through this company. So whenever we're tackling and trying to figure out what we're going to introduce, how we're going to introduce it, we think about, how is this going to make the designer's life easier? And talking about refinement is really refining your focus, and understanding what it is that you're here to do. For us, we are here to put beautiful products in front of interior designers. So all of the extra hoopla and all that other stuff, we don't worry about. We focus in on that, and how do we get that message to them? How do we get these beautiful products in their hands? Whether it's utilizing Instagram, whether it's utilizing email blasts, whether it's doing panels, whether it's just DMing interior designers, which is quite fun, by the way. The things that go down in the DM. But it's sort of just having an understanding of what it is your brand does. What is it that you have to offer, and expanding upon that in a very concentrated way.
Yeah, no. And I think that's even crucial right now. I think even just what your business is doing too, it's like how to get the beautiful things to designers, because I feel like now more than ever, because we can't get that, I miss just the process of shopping and getting the tactile feel of things, and just sort of the surprises that come
Yeah.
with that experience. And, Pinterest, you can kind of discover new people, but it is sometimes those DMs that somebody sends you and you go, oh my God, I've never heard of this brand. And I haven't been able to get access. That's really crucial right now more than ever, just to get exposure, because there's amazing things out there, but getting access to it is difficult.
It's hard. Yeah.
So before we move on to the next question, I did not forget Roxanne. I also want to get your opinion on, in the new year, how are you approaching e-design, virtual marketing, different brands? How are you approaching it?
Well, I mean, definitely I'm used to getting business from travel and community building and drawing from my network. So very highly personalized, mostly word of mouth, probably like most interior designers or design firms. And so one of the ways that we also redid our website this year and really started to refine our message. Because even a creative agency needs to evolve over time as well. So, and then one of the things that we worked on is really building out our content. So being more generous with our expertise and sharing it with others, because I think more than ever now, we should be lifting each other up. We should be generous, thoughtful and kind. And also with existing clients, I really focused on taking care of them and making sure that, because again, word of mouth is such an incredible piece of this. Like I always say, there's a trifecta. There's word of mouth, there's website, and there's social media. And I think when those three work together, you really start to see gains in terms of, sales and client and inquiries coming in. So
Yeah,
I think if you stay genuine and true, things happen in your direction.
And I think it's important too, what you said about just really thinking about content too. Like, I think so many of us, when we're in this, we kind of think certain things we keep to the chest. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, we could write 1,000 things sharing what we know. No one can really recreate it the same way that we do. So I do agree, being generous with that information now more than ever, I think people will gravitate towards you for your authenticity. So this is going to be the last question to the whole group, and then I'm going to have more individual ones. So I just wanted to know, what are some important factors to consider when branding your business? So I'll start out with you, Kristen.
So the most important factor is know who you're talking to. Who is your client? Who are you trying to reach, and speak to that person? So there are a lot of people out there who are interested in working with me. And it's hard for me to be able to speak to every single person and answer every single question that they have. But if I can refine it down to one person and speak to that person, I can essentially be speaking to a lot of people
Yeah.
in that way. The other thing that I have done, which I didn't mention earlier, was that this year we decided, because we were really trying to find ways of communicating to our audience and to people who are following us either on social media or looking at our website, is creating a newsletter and a blog.
Mm.
And in that space, I'm able to really speak on a more detailed and deeper level and a more personal level, and really share things that I know people might be interested in. It's the time of year, wintertime, what we do for our holidays, or summertime, some tips on how to make your outdoor space better. So we do like to be able to be very personal in that. And I think that that really is important to the audience that's trying to get to know us better, is for us to be able to share the more personal and detailed information about design and lifestyle.
Tiana, I'll have you go next. I just wanted to get, your perspective on what do you think are really important factors to consider with branding?
So, in my work or going through exercises with the clients that I build strategy for or advise, we always start with a deep soul search. We go through exercises of, self exploration and self, not just, the individual, if it's an interior designer or the company or the product set. So we can roadmap. We're looking at, we're analyzing competitive market sets. We're looking at goals and aspirations, and going through that homework process is essential, because I've always, I loved what Kristen said about, being able to speak to the audience, but a lot of people don't really understand who their audience is, so understand who you are, and then go through the process of really defining your audience, and then understanding where the gaps are. So as part of the branding process, we're going through to fill the gaps and say, okay, this is where you're not sort of reaching your audience, or this is what your audience is looking for, but you might not be giving to them in the way that you think. I think the other thing is aesthetics matter. Shout out to Roxanne. Aesthetics matter. I think we're in, even more so now than ever before, we're in a highly visual, highly competitively visual environment. There's a lot of access to beauty. So it's not just beauty anymore, right? So now it's beauty, but it actually is, like you said, Angela, you can share everything you share and not be worried in a space of abundance, because you have your own footprint, your own blueprint, and really being able to say, there's a baseline of aesthetic awareness and competence that is the standard right now, especially after 2020, right? So being able to hit that, understanding how to hit that depending on your budget. So if there's a really small business and they're really scrappy, kind of looking at I don't really work with tiny outfits, but what I would say if someone that has a tiny outfit is, everyone has disrupted everything, right? We're in the post-disruption world. So there's something for everyone to get to the place they need to go, whether you're hiring a professional or you're using an online tool, and then, sort of being able to execute that pathway. So in that process of branding, I would just to reflect on this is really like, know yourself, know your client, aesthetics matter, and then really kind of make that respond to your personal budget.
Yeah, no, I think this is all like very crucial and important to think about. And like you said, there's always something for someone. You know what I mean? I think all of us, as we've engaged with certain clients, you go, well, this person isn't right, but I know somebody else, and I know this can kind of connect. You can always kind of help someone, but getting that right direction and knowing what you really tailor your branding on, I think is so crucial. Roxanne, what is really your perspective of what you feel are some of the really important factors to consider with branding?
I mean, I think Tiana hit a lot of great points. I would also add that we also go through a brand discovery process, whether we're doing website work, brand identity work, social media. One thing I always say is comparison is the death of happiness. And so I get people that come to me and say, I want to be so-and-so. Like already we're going to have a problem.
Already we're going to have a problem.
So let's dig
That
deep.
one's taken.
Dig deep.
Right, that's taken.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And dig deep and really think about, because again, without a doubt, the brand is who you are and who you want to align with and who you want to work with and who your client is. That's where you're going to be the happiest, right? And if you start going down a path of wanting to be someone else, you're going to end up not being very happy with the work later on. So that would be my piece of advice, I think.
Yeah, it's number one to remember, admire. I admire someone else's, but I can't recreate it. You know, like there's certain people I'm like, I love that. I love your game. It's not my game. And I just have to respect that. Moving on.
I think everybody goes through it, right? I mean, we all evolve, and all of a sudden it's even 3 years into my agency, I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm so happy I'm here versus where I started. I mean, it is a process and you don't get it. No one gets it right all the time. So it's an evolution. It's constantly like refining it and really digging deep. So.
Yeah. And so Anderson, what do you feel like is really important for branding? How do you focus that in with your business right now?
Well, see, everything I do, I lead with intention. So I always figure out what is my intention for something? What is my intention for signing this brand? What is my intention for putting out this messaging? That's what sort of guides me. And, you know, to echo what everyone else is saying, you could be a better you than you can be a better somebody else. So the first thing for me is I always try to set my intention, and then I always go with how can I, because I am the brand, how can I speak from the essence that is Anderson? Nobody else is going to be an Anderson. There's the only one in the world. I'm sitting right here. And for everybody that is about to do anything in their lives, start a brand or whatever, don't think about, oh, I want to be like this person, or I want to follow what that person has done. Use it as a beacon, use it as a guidepost, really, but don't try to be that person. Be yourself, be you, and let that shine through, because there's nobody else on the planet that's going to be you. And the essence of branding is really trying to be unique and stand out. And the only way you're going to stand out is if you truly are yourself. That's how I approach it.
And I must know, do you journal? Do you meditate? I'm like, you're speaking my love language with the intent. I feel like I'm on the Calm app right now, talking about intentions. I'm like, okay.
Listen, I really do sit with myself every morning. I get up at 5:30 and I usually go to the gym and have a nice run. And it's, you know, you're centering yourself and aligning yourself and going through sort of the things of the day and what is it that you're trying to achieve. And that's what I do. It's all, when you are the head of the brand, it all starts with you and flows through you. So you've got to be centered. Otherwise it's just chaos and foolishness. And we spent 4 years of doing chaos and foolishness.
You're like, I'm done with that.
See how that is.
All set.
All right, so let me move on to some of the individual questions here. Just give me a moment. So this first one, I'm going to start out with Tiana. Let's say when someone's hiring a professional or managing their brand, can you share the benefits of why someone should really come to someone like you to really build their business?
Well, thank you for that question. First and foremost. But, you know, I think a lot of times you can't see yourself. You know, there are a lot of people who are in the work, whatever they're doing, whether it be, you know, curating product or, you know, being an interior designer or, you know, whatever endeavor they're embarking upon, whether it be creative or otherwise. And it's you, and sometimes you can't see the blind spots, so where I would say, someone is able to go in and do that dirty work, roll up their sleeves, do a bit of truth telling. So it's when you start out with your brand, I don't necessarily think it's important to hire a professional when you just start out. In terms of someone like me, a strategist, it's important to hire a graphic designer and have that creative burst out into the world with a lot of flair and emotion and authentic resonance. But I'm kind of the person that comes in, 4 or 5 years later. Says, okay, let me take a look at what's been done, what's been missing, where do you want to go? And maybe 4 or 5 years later, it might be 80 years later. I have some clients that have very old companies. And really doing that heavy lift with someone who's going to tell you the truth. So the other thing about hiring a professional, do not hire a branding consultant or strategist if you don't want to make changes. So the worst thing for me is someone who's like, I know everything, or I've been doing this wonderfully and I refuse to change because it's great, for me. And I'm just like, okay, so there's no evolution in that, right? So if you're hiring a professional on a very practical level, and this is why that relationship and that community and that synergy matters, you have to trust that person and you have to be able to hear what they're saying to you and act on that. And if you are, if it becomes egoic or if it becomes offensive or, all these things, because, as creative people, it's your practice, your artistic practice, right? So this is why the relationships that I have in my business are so intimate and really are special. And I have to be discerning about who I take on, because for me, it's not just about the money. You can spend the money and I can get paid. And if you don't do anything that we've worked on together, I feel bad and the client is disappointed. So I think if you're hiring a professional, you really have to be open to that process and make the space and time to do so.
And I think I just have one other follow-up question with what you said too.
Sure.
People who want to be open to the change and the growth. How do you really build that trust with new clients, to get that real honesty that's tough for someone who may have been in business 5, 8 years and feels like they're on the right track already?
So that's the courting process for me. And that's why it isn't everyone. I'm not for everyone. I'm going to tell you the truth. And we're going to have, numbers to back it up. And I'm going to give you examples. But also it's, luckily we're in 2021 and we can talk about energy and resonance. It's also a spiritual thing of sorts. I know this is a business conversation, but I can know in 20 minutes whether or not this person and I are going to be able to work together. That trust is not like a prescriptive thing. If I have a first phone call with someone and we have to get off the phone because we've been talking for an hour and a half straight and we've lost time, that's usually a good indicator for me that we're speaking the same language. So it is that simple and that complex as well. Also, I have a very specific brand. I work at the intersection of art and design. I'm very academic sometimes. So if a company is more kind of lifestyle driven without the intent that Anderson mentioned, I won't be a good fit because I'm really, really interested in that research and in a conversation about the design continuum and kind of what are we putting out into the world and what is it changing? Those are conversations I want to have with my client. My clients, whether or not they're big companies or, sort of startup phase. So they're thinking, and not everybody wants to go through that kind of heavy lift. So I have a very specific tenor to my work. So you're kind of in that zone or you're not. So it's pretty simple that way.
All right. Well, thank you. I love those answers. I think they're good for us to marinate on. This next question is actually for Kristen. I think one of the questions, this is actually something that was sent in advance. we're interested in learning more about your e-design services called Rooms by Rivoli. Can you share the steps that took you to brand that and how you're using it to differentiate yourself from other luxury interior design businesses?
So the Rooms by Rivoli that I created is
Rivoli,
really,
my apologies.
no, believe me, everybody does it. So no big deal. It's a really different business profile from my luxury interior design business. So it's a separate e-design. And what I discovered was in working, I would get contacted by a lot of younger couples who were just starting out. They may have just bought their first home and their budget's pretty tight. And, but they still care about design. They want a beautiful home. They want to, you know, they've got maybe a great sofa. They don't know how to put the rest of the room together, or their bedroom set is from their college dorm room, and they'd really like to upgrade a little bit and feel like adults in their new home. So the problem became that they just couldn't afford to hire me to do that work. And it really bothered me. Year after year, I would get clients like this. And so I created this concept where we've fully curated rooms. We've used retail vendors to do it. And they live on the website. It's a separate website, all of its own, but it's linked through my main interior design website. And it has living rooms right now. We're going to be launching home offices next because everybody seems to be working at home.
Yes.
And then right after that, we're going to be launching our master bedrooms. But they can select the style. There are 6 styles of each room, and they can select a style that resonates with them. They can, once they get that and purchase that room, they receive links for each product. And it's direct to the retailers. I don't get a commission on any of the sales that are made. But what it allows them to do is be able to purchase these rooms at their own pace, because obviously they may not be able to buy that room all at once. Right? They're a new homeowner, and this is, you know, we're wanting to build that room, but at least they have the master plan. They have that vision of what that full room could look like. Or we have a sofa, but now we know we can buy these chairs that can go with it. The way we were able to figure out how to brand it was that I hired a strategy consultant, and we worked really hard at finding out how to make this marketable, who we were talking to, and we created the website to make sure that the language explained it really well. We have a Q&A on the website, which brings up potential questions that people are going to have about how does this work and how do I use the package once I receive it. So if you go on to roomsbyrivoli.com, you will see right in the very beginning, it's for new homeowners. And as you scroll down, it allows you to learn more and more about it. There's a sofa guide you can sign up for. So obviously a sofa is usually the first piece of furniture I recommend people to get. And this tells you all about it. And I give 3 retail recommendations. So it's really, you know, it was really just another way for me to work with people who I can't really work with full time, but maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, when they're in a better place and they are like, we just bought a new home and we want to hire you as a full-time designer, they now know a little bit about the design process, that they feel really comfortable moving forward hiring a designer.
And
I'm so clever.
Thank you.
I know, I'm like, I love the idea. I'm actually getting people on the side who are saying, brilliant, such a great
Thank
idea.
you.
I almost left to go to the website.
I know, me too. I'm like, oh, I can't.
Go to the website. Yeah.
I'm like,
I know,
I'm
like, I can't do that
iPad.
on the
They're
panel.
www.roomsbyrivoli.com.
It's a great idea.
Thank
And
you.
there's so much.
Absolutely brilliant.
And you know what? You also build loyalty, because then that's where it starts. And then, you know, they remember that. I you know, that's just so clever. I could go into a whole thing about that, but that is so clever.
Thank
Clever.
you.
Bravo to you, my
Very
darling.
good.
Bravo.
I mean, it came from frustration of not being able to help people. And, you know, we're creatives and we're problem solvers and we always want to help people, right? That's what we
Yeah.
do. And so when you're not able to, and when you have to turn somebody away, you know, I feel bad personally, it just because they've come,
It keeps
they've
me
made
up at
the-
night.
right, they've made the phone call, they're really interested in design. And so to say no to them is not a great feeling, right? So how
Yeah.
do I make that work? And this way I'm not doing a design in a box where they're sending me a floor plan and then I'm sending it back or whatever, because most times when people get on the website, they want to hire, they want to order things right away. They want an immediate satisfaction.
Yeah.
So they will get that. They purchase that room and they'll immediately, within a 24 hours or period, they'll get that PDF package. And it also gives them tips and tricks. I give them a lot of information about
Oh,
how to lay out your room and how to hang your window treatments and size a rug and all of those questions that everybody has.
I love it.
design superstar right here, everybody.
I know somebody
I'm
wrote this,
literally-
genius
I'm-
Kristen.
I'm literally trying to stay focused on the panel right now because I'm about to run.
Right? I'm like, can we wrap up? I gotta go.
I gotta go.
All right, so we still have more questions, but Kristen's already got us motivated. We're like, this is a great brainchild idea. Let's keep this going.
I'm thinking about how we're gonna be a part of it.
Yeah,
Well, that's true. So our next question, I have this one is for Roxanne. Let's talk about the importance of a consistent brand message. How do you feel like it helps your business and also your bottom line?
Well, recently I just read an article in Forbes that said that having a consistent brand across all marketing platforms can increase your sales by 23%. Now, again, this is low hanging fruit. So not going crazy, not doing all, anything above and beyond, but just that alone. I mean, how important that is. Consistency is key. The mind resists confusion. And as soon as there, when you know that, even think about your favorite brands, you see that logo or you see that label or you enter that store and you feel something.
Yeah.
And you feel something because it's repetitive, because it's consistent, because you feel safe. You know what you're going to get. And so I think, the consistency heightens your brand presence. It preserves your expertise. It protects the quality of your work. And most importantly, it gives you the upper hand in a competitive market. How to stand out. And I think even just information in general, like the copy on your website, is it confusing to people? Where do people contact you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. The littlest things that make a huge difference. So,
Yeah.
So I think it's everything. Consistency is everything.
Yeah, and I think again, as you're building a brand, right? It's just the consistency. I think people see quotes like that all the time on motivation, like, oh, it's the consistent work, but it really is. There's no secret to it. Like the people who keep like coming up with new logos and new brands.
I have it on my notes. Consistency is key. I was like, yes. It's like McDonald's French fry. It's like it tastes the same everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, the McDonald's fries taste the exact same. So you know what you're going to get. And
I do.
it does create comfort.
It's going to be good. So my next question, Anderson, perfect timing, is for you. What is an important factor to consider, I think, when branding your business? Like, let's talk about from a perspective of budget, aesthetics, who's your audience? How do you focus, like what to do and budget-wise, how to handle all that?
Well, you've got to consistency key. You've got to stand back and sort of look at the overall picture. And again, going back to intention, setting your intention. What is it that you want to say and how you want to convey it and all of that. And it's really looking at the overall picture and then making those connections. For me, for Summersell, we don't have a glamorously huge budget. So for me, I had to sit back and think about, well, where am I spending? Where are we going to spend the money? Like, what really matters when it comes to the branding things? So, for example, one of the most expensive things that spend we have is our branding for the way that our samples go out.
Mm.
These are a pretty penny, but you think about, this is a touch point. This is the first interaction with your clients are, in this day and age, is usually digital. So you have to have a very strong, clear, consistent digital platform, digital messaging.
Mm.
But then the second part of that, where the real bucks are spent, is certain touch points. So for us, I knew that this was going to be a touch point for our designers. So I wanted them to receive something in a pretty package and feel the quality. So it creates a sense of security. If you got a rinky-dink piece of, regular envelope in the mail, you're going to be like, oh, what is this weird online showroom thing that I just ordered from? And plus for me, it was the same thing for our partners. It's, all of our partners have great quality product and put the money there I consider it a touch point. So I wanted to make sure that our touch points were equal to that quality. And then, so you've got to take a step back, look at the overall vision, and like just map things out and figure out what budget you have and where you're going to spend it. I think a lot of people waste money in some crazy places, but I think the best way to spend your money is digital and just a couple touch points and things like that. So for us, we think about how much money we're going to spend on Instagram, but then also just don't spend that money, look at the analytics behind it. I just did this post. How many people click the website? Can I follow the numbers? Can I see if they all add up? And, but also it's just about bringing in that consistency point. It's just being consistent with everything and just making sure that you're doing the same thing and, putting out the same message all the time.
Yeah. And can you give me, just for our listeners, one example of where you feel like it's a waste of money to invest? You're saying crazy, but you're just like, it's just not really worth your time to put money into that.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, where do you start? What do you pick? An extravagant website, I feel. I think that how you've got those websites that have like too much bells and whistles, like there's like this thing swoops in from over here and then this thing swipes up from over here and then you're just like,
Yes.
you're lost. So I think you waste a lot of money. Yeah, I know, because I've been down that road. You waste a lot of money with that, and it's sort of just be simple. So I feel like people do waste a lot of money on flashy things like that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, the pop-ups are a lot. There are a lot on some websites, and you're like, I don't even know. I don't even want to I don't want to be a part of the newsletter yet. I feel like it's right in my face.
Right.
You can't be a part of the newsletter.
Doing the newsletter. It's too
By
much.
the time you've landed on the page, something already swipes by, and then this thing drops down. Oh, and by the way, we want you to join our newsletter. It's, it's sort of like, and that's what I mean by take a step back. Take a step back and really set the intention. For me, for Summersell, I knew I wanted it to be super user friendly. So I spent a lot of time going to different websites. That's how I know there's so much swooping and dropping and all that. And I didn't want any of that. The only thing that pops up when you go to Summersell is join our community, and that is it. And I said to our tech team, that is it. We don't want anything else. Nothing else is going to swoop over here. We're not going to pop up a deal. Like this is like none of that. And then again, fonts and everything like that, making sure that everything is clear, crisp, easy to read. It's not a bunch of, don't waste your money on the hoopla. Pull back, refine. Earlier, we talked about refining. Refine it. You can only refine something if you look at the overall picture and then, take it step by step.
My next question I'm going to have here, this one's going to be for Tiana. How do you know when you're working with a different business? How do you know when the branding strategy just isn't working and it needs to change?
Well, that's part of the process, that evolution and refinement. So when we're going through the first exercise of setting out a strategy, what we're also really doing is defining measurable goals.
Mm,
And that the word I love so much because it sounds so corporate, but the KPIs, like what are your key performance indicators, sort of making sure that those are defined prior to going through the exercise. And checking in, if you're 3 months in and you've executed, whether it be a campaign or a digital strategy, or you have a new website, like what are we looking at? How many visits are you having? Are you looking at the analytics? Is it moving? Did something happen in this process? And if we're losing steam, we have to refine. If we're gaining steam, we have to do more of the same, right?
mhm.
So, I'm always looking at, 3-month increments and hoping that a campaign can wrap in a year so we can reflect, sort of what are the best practices, what did we learn, et cetera. Things not working immediately is not necessarily, it's not going to work at all, but you have to be in the process, carving out a little time to, look back at it, and you're babysitting a little bit, right? So
Yeah.
you invest in a new campaign, a new website, a social media program, etc. That's your new baby. So you want to check in and you want to really, really make sure that there's, as entrepreneurs, I know everyone's doing 17 things at once, but just putting that on the calendar, like, hey, we're going to look at this. We know what the numbers are, and let's make sure, even if it's not numbers, I'm saying sometimes things are, kind of like soft markers, but you have to set out those markers. And sometimes those things are industry standards, or sometimes those things are very personal to your specific business. So that's kind of the process that we go through, defining what is right for your campaign and in your business at, each particular step of the way.
And I'm sure you can also agree with this too. A lot of us, once we actually, it's almost like when you're on the scale and you weigh yourself and you keep like weighing, and like, your weight then starts to get a little bit better. Maybe you don't lose weight, but you also don't gain 10 pounds. But when you don't keep track of it at all, it kind of balloons, it gets out of control. And I found even like, on my sites, I don't usually check analytics. And then when I do, I'm like, I don't even know what to do with it because I'm not consistent with it. I think is so important with the business.
Right. And it's also saying, okay, so tomorrow's a new day. Where are we, on the 22nd, right? And it's okay that you didn't do it for X amount of years, but if you start tomorrow and you take a sweep, okay, what are we doing between now and the 22nd of March? And then say, okay, let's put a little flag in the calendar to take a look and see what we've done. So don't beat yourself up because I think, especially for creative people who are very much in a material world, all of this kind of data-driven business is not necessarily something that's instinctual. So it's like, riding a bike, just getting used to sort of plugging that aspect of the business in.
Yeah, and I think most importantly for everybody who's listening, I mean, these are the perfect times to do it. You're in January, not that far behind. The year has just started. It's a perfect time just to say, hey, I'm going to just put that in as my Q1 to check in on analytics, see where I am today, revisit, and then start to go from there on your branding. But I think it's something that this is a perfect time to start.
Right. And then also, I don't mean to interrupt, but it also could be, sales. It doesn't always have to be, sort of digital metrics. It could also be sales goals as well, or a newsletter opens, or, there's so much.
So my next, and thank you, Tiana, because I agree, it's not just the analytics of like, did I do 5% better?
Yeah.
In one perspective. So my next question here, it's actually going to be for Roxanne. I really wanted to talk about, this actually came through from someone asking, when you're doing your brand's visual identity, is the foundation for articulating your company's narrative about creating a lasting brand? Can you walk us through a little bit what is involved in the process of the assets that you look at to really create a lasting brand? It's a very thoughtful question.
Yeah, it's very. So as I mentioned before, the discovery process is critical. We take the time to send over an interview, and then we do a follow-up. We develop a creative brief where we go through things like where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? Who are artists and companies that you admire? Why do you admire them? Why are you? What gets you up in the morning? What excites you? Because it's in that you start to articulate the visuals that will create the lasting brand. And so, as part of that, we start with the logo, and then we also develop a typographic set and a color palette. And then from there, for like relatively newer companies and firms, that's pretty much where we'll go. But if you're in the 5 to 10 year, we might add on like a brand messaging guide, social media guidelines. When you have a larger company where you might have employees that are also involved in either contributing to social media or if you have an outpost in a location somewhere where you may need that brand ambassador to align with, your core values. So a lasting brand, I mean, I wouldn't say it is always an evolution.
Yeah.
The logo mark could stay, but maybe color palettes over time might change, or your typographic set could be refined. But I think it's about that developing the narrative of who you are and where you want to go. So I think that's key in everything. So.
Yeah, I agree. What's the bigger picture? And then really having someone to work with from a business perspective, because a lot of those questions, when you're in the middle of it, you don't ask those questions yourself. You
don't. And it's like therapeutic for the client. And we also gather a lot of visuals in the process, like lots of mood boarding from their side, from our side. And then you start to hone in on what are the patterns that you're seeing visually, and then how do you translate that into that identity? Yeah, which I think is all huge. So we're coming into some of our last questions here. So this one is going to be for Kristen, because I know this is something you said that your business did this year. When do you feel like it's time to refresh and time to start reconsidering when to rebrand?
So I started my business in 2009.
Okay.
And I had kind of come up with a logo on my own, and shortly after hired a graphic person who did refine it for me. So here we are, and in 2020, and actually late 2019 was when I really started to look at refreshing my brand. It was 10 years, and I really felt like, I just needed to update the website. I needed to update my logo. You're 10 years further down the road, and so you're that much further in your career. And we really wanted to make sure that was projected, that message was projected on the website. The logo, kind of reflected that level of luxury that we work with and work for. And so, I think 10 years is a good time, 8 to 10 years, good time for rebranding.
Yeah, which again, I feel like we usually try to say that in any type of commercial space.
That's when I usually hear from my clients. They want their family room refreshed or changing up a rug or something like that. And it's usually about the 8-year mark.
Yeah. So I think then one of our last questions I'm going to go to, this one is going to be for Anderson. When you've created branding, it almost feels like now that you've done that, what's next? How do you share this brand marketing? How do you get it out to the people now?
Well, in order to do that, you've got to create a plan. You've got to be consistent with that plan. So it is, you've done all the work that you needed to do, created your logo, picked your fonts, do all of that. So you need to sit down and really map out how you're going to get this messaging out. For us here at Summercell, we knew what our launch week was going to look like, that we were going to introduce all the different brands. We knew that we were going to be what our social media game was. We're posting 3 times a day, a morning post, a midday post, an evening post, so that we get an understanding of what that language is like. We have a plan for our e-blast, so we know how many e-blasts we're doing a week, what those contents, what are those e-blast contents, and thinking about, how often are we doing Instagram stories? We know that we're doing 3 a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So that leaves us with Tuesday and Thursday. What are we doing for Tuesday and Thursday? So it's really having a clear plan on how you're going to consistently keep putting the name of your brand out there. And then also another thing that we do, we have, some time where we strategize of touch points with the press. Like we'll reach out to our magazine editors and say, hey, what are you guys working on? Da, da, da. Oh, I know that you are working on your summer issue. Here's what's your focus there. So you won't be able to do any of that consistently without a plan. So you need to get still and just really set the intention, get still and map it out and write it down. Do it in your head. Don't do it in your head. Get a dry erase board, map it all out, schedule it. There's so many tools out there for you to schedule your social media post. But earlier, what we talked about is, babysitting it almost is what the language someone used. It's being mindful. It's making sure that you don't become complacent. You've got to hone in. If you have your post set automatically, well, things change every day. So, people might be storming the Capitol in your country. You don't know. So, you don't want that to be going on in the world. And in your post on social media is like, isn't it a bright new day?
Yeah.
And I say that because truly that almost happened to me. It was our director of operations that said to me, hey, listen, some serious stuff is going down. And I know what the post of the evening post of the day is going to be. But so we wouldn't have known that if we didn't write it down, shared it with your team, and pay attention. So set the intention, make the plan, get still, make the plan, execute the plan consistently is what I would say is how you can effectively get the messaging of your brand out there.
I think that is the perfect way to end this conversation, talking about new year, new branding. And I think everybody here has just shared an invaluable amount of information, and just new things to really get you guys focused for what 2021 can hold for not just you, but also your business. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming on there. Thank you, Calm Collective, for hosting this. This was awesome.
Thank you, Calm Collective.
Thank you.
Big thank you.
Calm Collective.
Thank you, Angela, too. This is
Angela,
great.
thank
Angela, you were great. Woo.